driver's side of the radiator, I released the plastic hose keeper. The inset photo shows what it looks like. Then I removed one of the hose clamps with a big jaw plier. The hose was stuck on the plastic hose connector, so I used a screwdriver to separate it and crack the seal. There wasn't a whole lot of coolant that came out, so I connected a blowgun with the tip removed and placed a rag around it to force air pressure into the coolant reservoir tank. This helped to push the coolant out. If you don't have a compressor, you can probably do the same thing with a shop vac. Just connect the vacuum hose to the air outlet of the vacuum. If it's a wet dry vac, you might be able to suck the coolant out from the bottom hose. GoPro 7 is waterproof in 3, 2, 1. After the coolant was done draining, I put the hose and the clamp back on and re-secured it with the plastic hose keeper. Here's where you can find the bleeder for the cooling system. It requires a relatively long screwdriver with a relatively thin blade. I don't have a long thin screwdriver, so I just use this. After several tries, I got the screwdriver in the slot of the bleed screw and unscrewed it 2 or 3 turns. I left the screwdriver in the bleeder to make it easier to close it after. I then poured in Peak Long Life coolant that is already pre-diluted. It went slowly down into the system, but stopped after a little while. Luckily, I bought this Motive Products power bleeder to bleed the brakes on this car. Turns out that the adapter that fits the brake fluid tank also fits perfectly on the coolant reservoir. I put it on and pumped air into the tank to force the coolant into the system. I could have filled the power bleeder with the coolant and used it just like for bleeding the brakes, but I didn't want to clean the tank again, so I just made sure the coolant reservoir always had coolant in it before pumping air in. If I didn't have a power bleeder, I would try making something out of a garden pump sprayer or something like that. It doesn't need a whole lot of pressure, but it does need to seal to the reservoir fairly tightly. You can actually hear the air bubbles coming out of the bleeder. At this point, you can hear the coolant just pouring out of the bleeder. When I heard that, I tightened the bleeder and topped off the tank. I drove the car a few miles to make sure it got up to temperature. After it cooled, I ended up adding a little more coolant to bring the level back up to the max line, so took pretty close to 5 quarts of coolant. This isn't a difficult job, but you really need a way to pressurize the system to bleed it. Good luck, guys!